this is Dr. Yu, your host. I'm a firm believer that healthcare knowledge should be readily available to public, and I just like talking about weight management as well as healthy lifestyle. So don't forget to subscribe as I plan to upload new videos every Tuesday. Today's topic is about intermittent fasting. I'm so excited to share about intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting receives so much attention ever since Dr. Yoshinori Osumi from Japan published a paper stating that short-term fasting can lead to healthier outcome. Now, ever since this result, he won Nobel Prize, received so much attention from the media, as well as the world of science and a healthcare provider. Before we dive into the scientific background and supporting evidence of intermittent fasting, let's talk about what intermittent fasting is and how we can practice that. Now, there's 3 different ways to go about this. First being the most popular, where it's called time-restricted feeding. So what that is when you have 16 hours of fasting period and 8 hours of eating, 16 hours of resting, 8 hours of eating. So during those 16 hours, you can drink coffee, you can drink tea, but you cannot add milk, cream, or any sugar. That being said, during the 8 hours, you are allowed to eat anything. You are not restricted to a certain food. The quantity of the food does not matter. Of course, a healthier option might be better. The second option is alternative day fasting. What alternative fasting is when you have a 24-hour of fasting, then 24 hours of eating, 24 hours of fasting, 24 hours of eating. That being said, again, during the 24 hours of fasting, you are allowed to drink coffee and tea, but again, don't add milk, don't add sugar, don't add cream. During the 24 hours of eating, you are allowed to eat anything, and again, the quantity of the food does not matter. Lastly, it is whole day fasting. What whole day fasting is when you have 5 days where you could eat anything and the quantity of the food does not matter, but then 2 days of fasting. Now, this is a little different because during those 2 days of fasting within a week, you can eat up to 500 calories. So 500 calories for women, 600 for men. During those time, you can drink coffee and tea and should stay hydrated, but they shouldn't be consecutive 2 days. So they should be interspersed within those 5 days. Again, during the 5 days, you are allowed to eat on a normal, regular diet. This is actually very scientific. Do you remember Dr. Yoshinori Osumi? Well, he's a guy who coined the term autophagy. Now, autophagy literally means in Greek, self-eat. And this is a process where a cell eats its diseased part of the cell whenever it's too old or some parts are malfunctioning. Well, Dr. Yoshinori Osumi, he did a research on yeast where he decided to starve the yeast, meaning don't provide any nutrients for the yeast. And he realized this autophagy process happened a lot quicker. It seemed to be similar in human too. When we are fasting, it seems like our autophagy process is happening a lot faster, meaning the diseased parts are being eaten up and new, healthier parts are being rejuvenated. Let's talk about some benefit of intermittent fasting now that we know what it is and how to practice it. First is fat loss. Now, fat loss is because we use glucose in our blood system in order to provide energy, and this glucose depletes after approximately 5 hours post-meal. So if we ate 12 o'clock, then around 5 o'clock, that's when we start using not our glucose. So what do we use? We use stored glycogen as well as stored fat. If we are using that stored fat, then we are essentially losing that fat, correct? So it's kind of similar idea as keto diet, except keto diet is something where you're completely decreasing the amount of carb you're eating. And if you want me to talk about keto diet, I would love to post another video about it. So let me know in the comment below. Second is it has a potential to reverse or even prevent diabetes. Why that works is because our body uses insulin in order to transfer the glucose in the blood to cell. That being said, insulin is a hormone produced from a pancreas. Now, individuals end up becoming a diabetic type 2 that I'm talking about when your insulin becomes less sensitive. So if your insulin is less sensitive, it has harder time to import your glucose in the blood into your cell. So how does intermittent fasting help you to prevent or reverse diabetes? Well, that's because a lot of scientific data are showing that during the intermittent fasting period, your insulin ends up becoming more sensitive. Number 3 is it actually is very good for your cardiovascular system in your heart and in your vessel. Numbers of research are showing that individual who practice this intermittent fasting has a lower cholesterol level as well as low blood pressure. And again, like I said, the diabetes. So all those 3 factors are very, very essential in keeping your blood vessel as well as your heart healthy. Number 4, it has a potential to slow the progression of neurodegenerative diseases. Neurodegenerative disease such as Huntington's, Alzheimer's, or Parkinson's disease, these are known to be the cause of defect in autophagy. Remember how I talked about autophagy? Individual who practices intermittent fasting ends up having a faster cycle and it induces autophagy. So it does have a potential to slow the progression of these diseases. Again, more research needs to be done because this is just based on theory. And number 5, but not the least, it has a potential to prevent cancer. Now, a lot of cancer are a result of these inflammatory cytokines. It has been shown from a lot of researchers that during the process of intermittent fasting, individuals decrease this inflammatory cytokine. And again, this is a theory. There has not been a long-term study, but can you imagine that if you can decrease this inflammatory cytokines that is a potential to cause cancer, then the progression or the possibility of developing cancer will decrease. So that's the benefit of intermittent fasting. Disadvantage of intermittent fasting. The biggest disadvantage of intermittent fasting is you will be hungry. Now, if you've lived many years in your life practicing certain diet, when to eat, your schedule was totally different. Once you move into this practice of intermittent fasting, then of course you're going to be hungry. And that comes along with another idea. When you're hungry, you're going to feel irritated and you're going to have no energy. So be prepared for that, and that is one of the disadvantages. Number 2, you're going to be dehydrated. So you have to make sure you drink a lot of water. Of course, you're going to be dehydrated because even food have a portion of water in it. There's a little bit of moisture in it where we think we're not eating water, but we're automatically consuming that water. And which comes up with another issue. Can you imagine being dehydrated and drinking alcohol on top of it? Yes, you're going to have a horrible hangover and you're not going to feel very good if you drink alcohol when you're dehydrated. Number 3, if you have a past history of eating disorders such as anorexia, binge eating disorder, or bulimia, I highly recommend you against it. You need to be monitored if you want to go onto this diet because it could potentially instigate relapse in those diseases. And number 4, there is no long-term study related to intermittent fasting and its benefit. That's because it's very unethical. Can you imagine telling someone, hey, we're going to do a study so you have to eat intermittent fasting for the rest of your life? That is completely unethical. So that's why we don't have a long-term human study on intermittent fasting. And lastly, but most important, everyone is different. I am different from you, you are different from others. Therefore, you should consult your primary care physician before you go onto these diets. For example, if you're pregnant, if you're breastfeeding, if you're a growing child, or if you have even a rare genetic condition, you really shouldn't be going on this diet on your own. Please consult your physician for this. Now, looking at the pros and cons of this diet, would I recommend this diet to my family members? I would say yes, definitely. I would recommend these diets to my family member. I feel like there's enough data and research that supports that it may be a healthy lifestyle changes. Thank you so much for watching this video. I had so much fun researching this topic. Please leave a comment about your opinion about intermittent fasting. I'm open to it. Please let me know if you are practicing one and how it goes. And please don't forget to subscribe again, as I will be posting new videos every Tuesday and you really don't want to miss it. On the next video, I'm going to get pretty personal with you and talk about my own journey of how I lost 20 pounds during my early mid-20s. So please stay tuned for that, and let me leave you with my favorite quote. The best project you'll ever work on is you.